Something I hear about all the time is men dropping out of the workforce, men dropping out of society. It's just not worth it these days to try to climb the corporate ladder, right? Because when it comes to hiring and promotion targets, these are biased in favor of women. Particularly, I've worked at many companies where that bias is the case. And then when it comes to getting married, there's a high divorce rate of 30 to 50%. So it's like, why do that? Because you might, essentially lose a lot of money in the divorce. If you have kids, those kids could be taken away from you due to child support, through a divorce. And then you have to pay high child support costs, alimony costs, things like that, legal costs. And then even socializing with the cancel culture right now, men can be accused of hashtag Me Too. There can be all types of accusations against a man, and because of hashtag Believe All Women, you can have all these accusations where men are treated like second-class citizens for having a different opinion for a woman, and maybe interpreting the way he's communicating with her as not problematic and toxic and things like that. And then you also have inflation, where inflation makes having a family and things like that feeling costly. Spending money on a date with a woman could be quite costly. And then everything feels like kind of a chore. If you're socializing, it's kind of costly. You don't know if you're putting yourself at risk. Now there's social instability in the UK, and there'll be some of that, I'm sure, in other Western countries. Some of it we've already seen. Then you have more people, more and more men thinking, what is the point of participating in society? So we have this interesting article here, right? It mentions that the number of working age males that say they don't want a job is increased by 600,000 to 3.1 million. Now this system, through what I've just mentioned, has created a set of circumstances that has created a number of working age males that don't want to work. Is around 3.1 million in the UK, and in the US it's about 7 million. So you have 3 million in the UK, 7 million in the US. I'm sure it's a couple million in other countries too across the West. It's like, why do you want to keep participating in this society as a man when things are being so rigged against you? And it's a very serious issue that we need to address. And it makes perfect sense why men are kind of disillusioned with participating in this society.
Circle back, I think it's really all about risk reward. Our father's generation was kind of promised this future that, like, if you put the work in, you work hard, you get a degree, you get a good job, and you put the 9 to 5 in, you're going to be rewarded with financial stability. You're going to be able to buy a house. You're going to be able to attract a female and get married and have children and have a supportive family that loves you. You're going to have a wife that loves you, that you can grow old together with, and you guys can just kind of take life on together. You have a family, you own a house, you just kind of live the American dream. I think 99% of men, if they're being honest with themselves in a healthy state of mind, that's what we want. We want to find success in our endeavors. We want to attract a woman that we can long-term pair bond with and have a family with, that will stick with us, that will stay loyal to us. And that is the ultimate risk reward. You risk putting all this time and effort in, but you're kind of rewarded with a family and financial stability, and you can own assets.
So this is an important point here, right? The risk and reward simply doesn't exist. You're going to be working so hard for a job that does not pay off. It doesn't give you the ability to even buy a house, right? You might buy a small apartment. And then also you've got to look at the high rent costs, right? If you're going to be working those high status, high paying jobs like in finance and tech and things like that, typically you'd be paying high rent. So a significant proportion of your money is even getting taxed through high tax or through paying high rent costs. So you might be earning a higher salary, but it's not really paying off. Then you have a super competitive job market because you're not only competing with people of your same country, you're competing with a globalized workforce, right? They might outsource your job from America or the UK to Mumbai in India. You have more competitive jobs because most men and women are working now, so you have double the workforce in each country compared to previous. So when it comes to those jobs, that is kind of being rigged against you. And then also I mentioned all the other issues in the intro about the higher risk of divorce, more difficult to own assets. If there's no risk reward, you do have a large proportion of disillusioned working age military age men who are going to fall for some sort of, or I don't want to say fall for, but they're going to look to alternative solutions. If there's no economical solution of financial solution of getting a particular job, earning a particular amount and investing that amount and having your freedom that way, people are going to think, what other ways can I have my freedom? And that is part of the social instability you see in the West. People getting pushed towards one political ideology over the other without getting too much into politics, because they're like, okay, well, the solution of working a job and living a quiet life isn't working because of high crime, high divorce rate, things like that. So there needs to be another way because I want to make my life actually something worth living rather than just something I'm going through the motions of.
Okay. I can work my ass off. I can go to college, I can get a good degree, I can get a good job, I can work 50 hours a week, I can work out, I can do everything right. And still, there is a very good chance now that I'll never own a house, I'll never be able to have a successful marriage, I can't afford to have kids, it's going to be hard to find a wife that's not brainwashed by social media, that's not going to cheat on me at some point, that's not going to leave me when I'm at my lowest. This game seems like it's fucking skewed. So fuck this game, I'm not going to play it. I'm going to enjoy what I like to do, which is play video games, smoking weed with my friends, drinking with my friends. Hey, I can, still watch sports with the boys. It's low risk, high reward. This adult thing, this is very high risk, very low reward. I can work my...
So this is a great point, right? So the high risk, high reward thing, right? So why live a high pressure life to just get the basic middle class income? And that's why you see some people moving outside of the West. They're like, well, if I've got nothing to gain from participating in the West, I might as well live a quiet life abroad. And you can live a basic middle class life in most countries outside the West too. So it's like, why are you exerting so much time, energy and effort to get maybe in a sense, a high six-figure salary? Maybe you're earning, 150K a year. Your wife might be earning 100K a year, and you're still struggling to teach your kids the right values because the schools are brainwashing them with all this gender ideology and stuff. Or if you're a single guy, a woman might not like the fact that you're earning less than six figures, things like that. These are all of the type of things that are worthwhile considering. And if you can't achieve a basic middle class life with this high pressure job environment, unstable social dynamics, unstable job stability, then you might as well enjoy the hobbies you want. You might as well pursue the minimalist life. Live a low-risk, minimalist life rather than getting married and being a beta bucks. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with the term beta bucks. And beta bucks is essentially where you work hard as a man and you be a nice guy and you do the right things and you earn a high-paying salary, and then you end up in a marriage with a woman who just sees you as someone who's an open wallet for her to use your money and use your social status to benefit her life, but she doesn't really want to be in a relationship with you. So if men can see how they're being disposable, being used as disposable assets for society, then they're going to pursue this low-cost minimalist lifestyle. They're going to go on nature trips, go hiking. They're not going to be allowing this system to use them, whether it's companies, employers, women, the government, political ideology. They're not stupid. They're not lazy. They can see how the most important demographic in any country is the working age, military age men, because the working age, military age men build a country and they can destroy a country. So it makes sense for the system to really consider what their needs are, because the older men who have millions of dollars in index portfolios, or women who wear pink hats and go on marches against Trump or whatever, or say they're refugees welcome, things like that, they're not really the people who decide whether a country exists or not. It's really military age, working age men. And I mean, you can read in between the lines there. That's why this system needs to really consider what makes sense for them. So the smart decision for men in this current dynamic, particularly young men or men in general, is to preserve themselves and pursue self-preservation. Self-preservation, and this is a key principle I want you to learn from, is self-preservation is rule number one. If you're a worker, an employer, particularly a man, you're being exploited through all types of avenues. You're working for a company, they're telling you to work hard to succeed, but at the same time they're saying, oh, we need to promote 40% of women to senior management roles, and we need to hire 40% women. And then as a man, it's like, okay, cool. So if you're competing for a job role with a woman, and I've seen this many times, they'll go for the woman because they have to meet their hiring or promotion quota. Then you have other instances whereby if you're a man, as I say, in many different social situations, you could be exploited and people might use you. We've seen certain smaller incidents which end up going viral where a woman will be using a selfie stick and her smartphone to record herself in the gym, and if a man accidentally looks her way, she will put the video on social media and try to cancel the man and ruin his life and say he's a misogynist or something, right? So these are the type of things you need to really consider. If men have to preserve themselves and see that, okay, they're going to be exploited by one group or the other, even with political ideologies, right, with trad cuts telling men to get married when it doesn't make sense financially, the left wing expecting men to emasculate and humiliate themselves for the benefit of feminism and liberal values. So you've got to be careful as a man how you're maneuvering through this. Don't get exploited or dragged into anything. I support certain political views, I have certain beliefs, but I'm not like wasting my money or time too much on politics or women or overexerting myself in a particular job that is going to drain me of my energy and let them use me and fool me about a promotion that's probably never going to come. right? So what if you have many men living on this kind of nightmare mode, which I think he also mentions in other parts of the video, is around nightmare mode is like, okay, when you're playing a video game, you have easy mode, medium, hard mode, and then more difficult modes. If you're living your life where you're working hard and you're not getting much, it's better not to try. And that's what I'd encourage you to do. Even though I'm a career coach and you can reach out to me for my career coaching services, part of that career coaching service I provide is to help you understand how to exploit the system, how to get paid more and to do less work, because this system's being completely rigged against you, not only in terms of money printing, but in terms of, as I say, the lies you're told at work about promotions, co-workers gossiping, things like that. You need to really find all the loopholes to exploit the system so you don't get exploited. That's very important.
Not going there. So I look around, I don't see anyone representing me. And I wouldn't be like that surprised, but the thing that really irks me is I look around and I see a lot of me. There's a lot of single young men in the world, and we don't have any representation. Nobody's looking out for what we want. Nobody cares about us. We're just kind of swept under the rug. We're thrown at wars when we're needed. We're thrown at blue collar labor. We're thrown in corporations where we're not going to get any pay raises, where we're going to be shit on. We're the first ones out in layoffs. We are treated like trash. We are disposable. And it's really frustrating because are we not the ones who actually like hold up society to a good extent? Like, we're needed, if I'm not wrong. I think that if you kind of peel back the layers of society, who are the people that are building the houses? Who are the people that are actually protecting, like the military? Who are the people that are doing the jobs that actually like make something, like engineering on cars, working in construction, stuff that is tangibly actually creating things? It's a lot of young men. So I honestly sense like a power vacuum. I sense a hole in the political system in the United States. I think that there is a good chance that over the next decade or two, there will be a significant leader or some sort of like shift in one of the major political parties.
This dysfunctional society, I always bear that in mind. And if you're a man who's watching this, rule number one is self-preservation. It's not working hard for a company. It's not making a ton of money. It's not pursuing social status or dating loads of women or whatever else. It's self-preservation. That's rule number one, and that's the most important thing. So when I say self-preservation, that means, okay, look out for your best interests. If you're working for a company, people are lying to you, manipulating you, go speak with a lawyer outside of work and make sure you're aware of the laws and regulation in terms of employment law. And if you need to take the company to court or if you need to find another job, start doing that. If a woman's putting you in a compromising position where you could be accused of something later, then make sure you've got a track record of what's been said on email, on a chat message, things like that. When it comes to any avenue of life, you're kind of seen as public enemy number one as a man, as a straight man. But in this society, that's how it's working in the West. And a lot of the social instability you see in the West is because of the demonization and the ostracization and the marginalization of a lot of straight military age men, and like I say, it's leading to an inevitable set of consequences. Now, when you have no representation, there's a lack of truth, there's no real guidance. You can't really rely on the baby boomer generation or older generations to give you useful guidance because they live in a completely different situation where circumstances were much better for them. You end up being exploited and being used. And I try to provide some truth to help you here, at least in terms of careers and some general lifestyle guidance. More information, one-on-one advice in the career advice service if you're interested. But just to follow up on this, right? So it's not a good idea to have so many working age, military age men with nothing going for them. And what he says, there are a lot of guys like him. Because I always thought, because I know I see, you probably can read in between the lines of some of the things I've said in my videos. I tend to live a peaceful life away from mainstream society because I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think that the rules on these companies that exploit you are going to work out long term. The financial system, the money printing is going to work out long term. The extent to which you are being lied to about so many things, the media, this system is losing its credibility. And I know, I'm on the fringes of society. I've been treated for having different views. You get labeled conspiracy theorist if you have an alternative view, things like that. I'm used to that type of, being marginalized, and then give it 6 months and I'm telling, 6 months later, 1 year later, as this system accelerates towards its collapse. People say, oh, well, I was telling the truth in the end. I was not brainwashed by conspiracy, things like that. So I don't mind doing that, but I'm surprised at how many people, or how many men are dropping out of society, how many people are agreeing with me, how many people, like he says, are like him. It's surprising to find that, because we always think, oh, we're on the fringes of society, we're marginalized because we have a different opinion, but loads of people are feeling marginalized, loads of people are getting cancelled one way or another. They might say something small at work and then then all of a sudden they're not told directly, but they're no longer in the popular crowd. They're no longer up for promotions because they said something that didn't fit in with the left-wing woke ideology and so on, right? So he's surprised about this, so am I, because there shouldn't be this many guys. If you have a functioning society, then maybe a couple people will feel marginalized, couple people will be on the fringes of society. Maybe men like me might be like, well, the system feels like a scam, I'm gonna take a different route. Maybe a couple guys, but when you have like, I would say there's anywhere between 30 to 50% bare minimum of men who are disillusioned and don't want to keep participating in this society. So that's really what's going on here. Now, there's a lot of actual work being done by these guys. The society that we live in, it's not based on people who send emails, people who have laptop jobs, people who have easy kind of jobs where they're just creating pointless work. A lot of the real work is done by men with highly technical skills. It could be traders, it could be coders, it could be men who work in manual labor, they work in construction, they build infrastructure, they're plumbers, electricians. These are jobs done by the same men who are becoming disillusioned by the system. Men who work in sanitation work in all types of transport work, things like that, fixing things like that. So all these type of men are feeling disillusioned. Now, if they decided to do some collective action, as we might have seen in recent months and things like that, it could be a general strike where they decide to not work for 3 days. It could be men who decide to deliberately undermine the infrastructure. Could you imagine if you have 50 men who've had enough of this system and they work in the electrical grid system, right, and providing electricity to a major country, and then 50 of those men, they're chatting, they're like, why am I participating in this system? Doesn't make sense. And then just take down the electric grid. I don't think it's that much of a, or at least electric grid in a town or a city rather than the whole country. I don't think that's that far-fetched, particularly in this type of social environment where people are fed up of everything. And this is what it creates, this system. It creates this type of people, men, working age, military age men who are encouraged to try hard, but they're getting very little from it. And they're a cross between a doomer who's kind of giving up on life and a go-getter who's kind of pushing himself to get the most out of life, even though he sees how rigged the game is. The type of person that will say enough is enough. He's taking his health seriously, working out regularly. He says he's open to failure and ready to learn and improve. He's avoiding, he has some of the stereotypical self-improvement things, fear is the enemy, I have a plan for my future, we should focus on the future, not the past. Eager for the challenge curve and overcoming difficulties and adversities. He's at life's crossroads trying to achieve his goals. But he builds discipline, develops skills. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad things, and they're all important things to do. But when you're doing this in the face of a rigged system, which is so in your face and blatantly telling you as a man, you're bad, you're a second-class citizen, women are preferred, toxic masculinity, you know all the talking points at this point, right? Then he's going to be a bit disillusioned. You're going to have, even though this looks like a funny meme, you're going to have something that looks exactly like this.
Couple of my previous videos, but delaying gratification only makes sense if you believe in the underlying fabrics of society and you realize how BS our society really is and how the future is very grim, especially for us, like young white guys. It doesn't make sense for us to work our butts off for a corporation that hates us and put our money in a 401k plan when we know that money is going to be put into some black lesbian fund or something in the future. It's going to be taken away from us. And it doesn't really make sense for us to delay gratification in relationships because the curtain's been pulled back on a lot of relationship dynamics that our, I guess, older counterparts haven't really seen. A lot of millennials.
So again, delayed gratification makes sense, but the reason why people are depressed and they're spending their evenings maybe watching Netflix, playing video games, eating junk food, things like that, that's the opposite of delayed gratification, right? That's instant gratification. But if they're like, oh, well, the system's rigged, I might as well just rot away, lay down and rot and just basically accept that the society's collapsing, so what's the point trying? Then you're going to have men who are kind of dropping out and have no interest in participating in work or climbing the corporate ladder and so on. And everything's so unstable right now. The culture, as I mentioned, could be quite anti-male. The money could crash because the stock market is in a bubble. Everything's in a bubble because the money's been printed by central banks. And then you have your tax money being wasted in your face. He mentioned going to a particular type of fund, which I won't repeat. If your money is going to overseas conflicts that you don't even support, that don't even help you or your country objectively, why are you sacrificing your life away for what? Might as well just focus on yourself and your personal goals? Are you going to get married to an overweight wife, a slam pig wife, right? Do you want a slam pig wife? Let me know in the comments if you want a slam pig wife. Do you want an overweight wife with a bad attitude who's going to potentially take everything away from you or accuse you of something and take money from you in a divorce in the future? Do you want a job title, a fancy job title? What's the point of pursuing a job title when you could be dealing with a layoff at any moment? So it's like, what is the solution? And that's really the question people are asking themselves these days, particularly young men.
Realistic cure for this is to get young men back on a purpose-driven life. And with the way technology and society and stuff has moved, I think the only realistic way to do this is to have some sort of spiritual revolution, some sort of major religion, preferably Christianity, because I'm a Christian, but I don't know, I see a lot of young guys embracing like Islam and stuff like that. Some sort of meaning, because career, gym, stuff like that, it's not going to fill the void of like, okay, why the fuck am I actually here? What am I doing on this planet? Is there a meaning to all this? Until you kind of hit the core of that problem and give guys a little bit of faith in building a future, incentive to delay gratification, whether or not that's building towards a brighter future in this life or the next life, until guys can kind of buy into that, they're not going to change. They're not going to enter back into a society that hates them.
So here we go, the painful truth, right? So if you have a lack of fulfillment, I would say you have two options, right? You can pursue a purpose-driven life where you can do a lot and not have much, but you feel fulfilled. And what I mean by that, you might have your own small business where you're working hard at it, but you are fulfilled at it. You might not be making as much money as a corporate job, but at least you're maybe living your life on your own terms. You can control your own schedule. You're helping people you want to help. You're not working part of an industry that is exploiting people. So that's option number one. And or you could basically do your corporate job and have a relatively safe corporate job, even though that's becoming less likely these days. But you kind of put in less effort and just enjoy your personal life in the best way you can. So if you look at this whole aspect of society, right, where this society is kind of spiritually gone and it's meaningless, right? I remember many work events that I would just refuse to attend because they were just cringe to me, but they were normalized to other co-workers, because it's typically the corporate environment. You might have people from different backgrounds, but the corporate culture is heavily based around progressive, liberal, feminist, white women. And if you think about the corporate culture, is it really an environment where it's kind of a really comfortable place for people of minority background? I would say no. Is it aimed at benefiting maybe Asian people, black people, white men, straight men, things like that? It's not really. It's kind of a very effeminate environment for white women. I really feel like the HR culture, the corporate culture is really benefiting kind of white women and people who kind of like playing within that kind of very tight, narrow boundaries of whatever would suit their sensibilities, their tastes, their likes. I remember some team events that I just refused to go to, like shuffleboard, a department go-karting event, work drinks, a cocktail mixing event. It was just so cringe to me. I never want to go there. And that was really used against me as me not being a team player because I want to attend some of these team social events. None of these are really aimed at like men who want to actually enjoy life. I don't really want to go to a shuffleboard event with a bunch of girl power, girl boss feminists, right? That's not what I want to do with my free time. When you have work social events, you're getting paid overtime for going to them in the evening, and then having to engage in like meaningless small talk around reality TV shows, having to spend 12 hours a day with these people, depending on how long your work hours are. 8 to 6, and then you've got to spend 6 to 8 going to a work social event with these people. Society doesn't understand how it literally offers nothing for men, right? Or young men in particular. And the conclusion here would be, men who feel this way, not only young men, but men in general, should look at like 1 to 2 aspects of their life and try to make a radical change so they can live life more on their terms. As I mentioned, whether it's living off grid, you'd be surprised, maybe I'd cover in some of my future videos, some men who are earning 6 figures, be in some of the tech sectors, electricians, things like that, and they're making 6 figures, but they're living in a van, or they're living in a car, right? And people like that, I know, as unusual as that sounds, I know a case, maybe I'll cover in another video, where someone was working in New Jersey as an electrician. They didn't like the bad weather, so they moved to Florida and they were living in their car for 5 years, even though they were earning quite a lot of money as an electrician and as an Uber driver. These are the type of things that are worthwhile consider. Thinking about radically changing your life to actually live a life you want to live. And some people, that's simply things like going for remote jobs. Some people, it's relocating, leaving the West, things like that. Deciding not to have kids, which is a big decision, but that's something to consider in terms of how to deal with this situation if you are a man dropping out the workforce or reducing your effort in terms of supporting and propping up this fake system that is rigged against you. So I hope you found this video helpful. There is a link in the description if you want to speak with me directly. I can provide you with some direct career advice. I've worked with many men who actually agree with a lot of these talking points through my career coaching service. So I'm happy to help. Reach out to me, link in description. And there are 2 recommended videos on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video.